Hi, this is Ralph, and I am presenting you with some information on the Lyceum Movement. Hopefully, you've read Josiah Holbrook, Father of the Lyceum, and hopefully, you went and looked through the website that explored a modern Lyceum uh, currently going on in Des Moines, Iowa. And now you're watching this video. The reason why I kind of set this up like this is because I wanted you to kind of go through and get a feel for what the Lyceum movement before I tell you what I think a Lyceum movement is. Hopefully, it activated some prior knowledge or giving you some ideas about what's going on here. And then as you watch my video, I'll go over as a review of some of the major points. And then in the discussion, we'll answer a few questions from that. I chose this particular reading because it's an interesting overview of the Lyceum movement, and as written about 100 years after the Lyceum movement started, and now we're almost 100 years past this article. And what I find interesting is that when we read this, the language is a little bit different than what we're used to in academic papers, but also they're conveying a point. There's a lot of passion about lyceums and what they've done and what they could do. I think the interesting part of this article is that you're bringing into this idea that anyone can speak. And since anyone can speak, a lot of historical figures, significant figures, got their start at the Lyceum. Think Abraham Lincoln, think Thoreau, think Frederick Douglass, think Susan B. Anthony. They all got their starts at speaking at Lyceums. And in fact, Ralph Waldo Emerson, his essays were basically Lyceum presentations. So hopefully you get some more out of this article. And I think it's interesting, and it's a little bit more fun than just a bland, dry reading. I hope you like looking around the website lyceummovement.org, which is designed by a modern lyceum in Des Moines, Iowa. A few of the interesting things that I kind of felt like when I was looking through there is like there was a passion there for knowledge, kind of like the original lyceums, and some of the things that they've discussed, like TED Talk, but better. So yeah, I do kind of understand what a TED Talk is, and I've never been to one live, but I always wondered if there was like a question and answer portion, and like there probably would be in a Lyceum conversation. Um, and in that question and answer uh, portion, I'm reminded of a time when I used to work at a local grad school, College of Marine Science, and on Fridays they would have people come in and talk. Or if you're working on presenting a paper somewhere and you wanted to practice, on Fridays would be the time. Uh, it was interesting because it usually turned into like, oh, here's the talk, and then turns into social. And that was very interesting. One of the things that I noticed a main difference is like sometimes in those discussions at the college, it almost get hostile. It depends on who's speaking. But here at the modern Lyceum, what we're looking at is, the first thing on the 6 habits of the Lyceum conversation, I include read your neighbor's words in the best light. And the second, talk for the sake of truth and understanding, not victory. I like that idea. I like the concept of like, I'm not here to get over on you. I'm not here to like make you feel bad. I just want to know what your ideas are. And with that, you are building a community. You are getting to understand your neighbors. You may not agree with everything with your neighbors, and how boring would that be? Um, but you can at least come to an understanding, and you can respect the person as an individual. And through these conversations, we can kind of build a better community. And I think that's the best part of what the Lyceum movement was, is that it built communities and made things stronger. And we'll discuss that a little bit later in the slideshow, and then hopefully in the discussion as well. Josiah Holbrook is considered the father of the American Lyceum Movement. He was born in 1788 and passed away at 1854. He's a graduate of Yale, 1810, and he started off as a farmer and educator and worked his way through that and became a traveling lecturer on geology and other subjects that he was passionate about. And then basically discovered that other people shared his thirst for knowledge. And what he decided is that he was going to have meetings in like the town halls and just have people come in and speak about what they're knowledgeable. And from that passion grew the Lyceum movement. And as Josiah started moving through all of this, he also had his Holbrook School Apparatus company. So there's the businessman part. And if you look at the picture down there, like many of those things that we see on that desk is the same things that we would see now in a modern classroom. So in closing, I think Josiah Holbrook had a very passion driven motives to do what he did. And as an interesting side note, when he passed away from looking at geological features in the creek, and he accidentally fell in the creek and passed away. Uh, I think it's interesting that he passed away doing what he had the most passion for. And I think that speaks volumes about what kind of person he was. So the historical significance of the Lyceum movement, if anyone ever stops you on the side of the road and says, "Hey, what's the importance of the Lyceum movement?" Your first answer is going to be it's one of the first adult education movements, and starting back in 1828 is pretty innovative. Um, and then, what would your second point be? Your second point would be anyone with knowledge was allowed to share, and that's pretty outstanding considering that even now sometimes a person with no credentials is not seen as part of able to add to the body of knowledge. But here it's like you can, and that was really one of the most significant points. And also it was the starting point for a lot of the great speakers and thinkers of that time. Uh, you know, Thoreau, Lincoln, Frederick Douglass, Susan B. Anthony, and notice like all those people are very different. And they were just allowed to speak. So it's like it's open to anyone. For me, when I think of the significance of it, I always tend to go more towards the do it yourself type movement. And here's a bunch of people who said, "Hey, we want to learn stuff. Hey, let's just do it." Okay. And I always think that's really cool. I also like the openness because I know that some people are really hung up into these things called like academic credentials. And, at that time, not everyone had it. But I tell you what, the farmer down at the end of the road, his crops are growing way better than mine. I want to know what he's doing. I don't care if he's been to Yale. So let's let him speak. And, I kind of added these four other points here. It's from Holbrook's original, and then it was put down through Thought Company, and that just kind of put that there. I think the one that I think I don't really think of that much, but it helps increasing the advantages and raising character of district schools. Not necessarily there was a cohesive district schools at that time, but it's kind of like if your parents are educated and they know a little bit, maybe they can help you out in the local classroom. Kind of innovative idea. So remember, when that random person comes to you and says, hey, what's the historical difference of the Lyceum movement? First adult education movement, allowed everyone knowledge to share, and it was a great starting point for many of the great speakers and thinkers of the time. And that's it for here. And the next slide's about discussion points, and I'll see you there. In our discussion chat, I would like to pose two things. First is, how would you use what you've learned about the Lyceum movement in your own teaching practice or future practice? Some of us, like myself, have a very rigid way that we're supposed to present information. But is there a way that we can use a Lyceum movement ideas to maybe get a little flexibility into our learners? And second is open floor. This stems from me going, hey, this would be a great idea, and it falls flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it up to you. What do you want to talk about? Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. And let's have a discussion around it. I'm look forward to it because I think this brings an openness to it that we can talk about whatever we want, kind of like a Lyceum. There you go. Including this page just as a reference to kind of how I was organizing my thoughts. This is something that I've been trying to do lately, and it kind of falls into the lesson plan thing, and I'm kind of an experiment. So if you like this, let me know privately, or if you hate it, let me know privately. But it's kind of a guideline of what should have been spoken about during this presentation. Um, so W5H, what? The Lyceum movement is considered one of the first movements in adult education. This occurred at a time when youth education was very disorganized, and here comes along this group of people discussing adult education, which in our present time we still don't kind of think of adult education as being very important, but we do think that for youth that education is very important. So that's why this is significant. Who? Josiah Holbrook. He was the father of this, and he started this and developed this, and he's considered to be a key figure in the movement. Where? It happened in Millbury, Massachusetts in 1826. And just kind of like a geographic reference, it's kind of like in the Northeast, the towns were a little bit smaller. They had town halls and stuff, and they had the space to do it. And how did they do it? They created a space where people can share knowledge. Uh, you have a different farming technique, bring it. You want to discuss a book you read, bring it. If you have an idea about something that should happen in the town or some sort of development, bring it. And let's bring the discussion to the table. And we're going to meet once a week and we're going to talk. And very interesting that anyone could speak. The Yale graduate had just as much attention paid to them as the local farmer who might know how to read and write. And finally, why? Why did this happen? Well, Holbrook had a passion for sharing and obtaining knowledge, and then discovered others had the same passion. And together they kind of worked into this system. And eventually it grew. It grew into a system where people started traveling to give lectures on basic topics. Many people like Abraham Lincoln, Thoreau, and Dickens, and people like that got their start there, and then moved into popular culture from many of these lyceums. In fact, I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson whose essays were actually the beginning of lyceums speeches. So that's kind of like what I did in a review of what should have happened and hopefully happened. Let me know if you like this, and thank you.